Hi. I'm looking at the ceiling a little too much there. Hi, Flamingo. You're first. You also showed up on a morning. Surprise! It's morning. If you're surprised, then you're not in my Discord because my Discord told you about it. Ren, you are not first. Congratulations. No one can take that away from you for the rest of the day. Hi. Hi. Um, so, yeah, normally, as you all probably know, I stream in the evening for dinner on Mondays. Well, today's Memorial Day. Today's a little bit of an odd day, holiday. I am attending a gathering in the late afternoon. We're going to be having some traditional outdoor grilling sort of stuff. Um, which means I won't be able to stream. So I've decided rather than put the stream off, I would get everything prepped up for the morning, which meant prepping everything last night, and do a morning stream. I'll be making beans. I'll have beans to take with me to the grill, but also because I like beans. And to go with the beans, Johnnycakes. If you don't know what a Johnny cake is, you will find out. I'm pretty sure that this is the origin of British beans on toast, because beans on toast is not from Britain, it's from America, because the beans that they use are from America. So yeah, it's morning. And we're here. And we've all got exclusively birds in chat. A flamingo and a wren. So welcome. We are going to use the pressure cooker quite a bit, because if you don't use the pressure cooker, beans take a long time, starting from dry beans. So, yeah, pressure cooker is going to be our friend. That should take a 20-hour work. 6 hours if you do the quick soak. Down to just a 2-ish, probably. I'm going to try to figure out how to get a camera looking in there when we do the second step, because we're going to use the pressure pot, the magic pot, the multi-pot, for sauteing bacon and onions as well. And I'd like to be able to see that. But otherwise, the beans are kind of a one-pot deal if you use one of these magic pots. But step one is just going to be water and beans. So we can do that real easy. Flamingo, made your fried egg. Good on you. What did you do? The ring, the flip until it's set, the pop and let it kind of dribble out. Rayuya in the morning. Here, let's slide over here. I do want to chit chat, but we got to get this part of this started post haste, because it is the longest bit, and there's, as much as the thing speeds it up, I can't speed it up any more than the thing is already speeding it up. So, Liz, hi, everybody's showing up. So we've just got a pound of dry beans. I'm gonna noisily dump them in the pot and poke around in there a little bit, see if there's any real gnarly ones. They always say sort through them. You sort through them mostly because you want to make sure there's no rotten beans and no stones. Every once in a while, a little stone will get caught in the bean sorter machines and make it through. It is not likely to happen in modern day. I'm removing these two. That one is, something's up with it, and that one, something's up with it. So I'm removing, let's take that one as well. No, that one's fine. Mostly they're fine. Discolored spots are not a problem unless they're really egregious. You want to get rid of ones that are obviously weird, or I don't know. You kind of get a, you can kind of tell the ones that you want to get rid of. Selena, EU friendly stream. Well, it's not meant to be an EU friendly stream, but hi EU friend. Um, I'm doing it for personal reasons, for greedy personal reasons. Um, I could try to do morning streams. Tell you what, this can be our test run. Maybe I'll throw in some more mornings if this one works out. Um, anyways, that's a pound of beans. That's going in there with a lot of water. And again, I got to get this part started. I will be back to address you folks in a sec. This weirdly dribbly pitcher that I got. It's good for big quantities. It's not good for pouring. It really wants to dribble, as it just did over here. Anyways, 8 cups of water. You need a lot of water at this stage because we are not doing a soak. And we're going to discard this water. We need enough water to extract the farty part. The farty party. You typically do not need to rinse beans because they go through a soaking process, which we are skipping here because, let me put this on, I'll tell you. I'll put this on and then I'll come back and talk about beans. Short answer, no, you don't rinse beans because of the way that they are cooked. Okay, lock that in, turn it on. Get it pressure cooking. Okay. That guy's gonna get working in the back there. So no, to answer your question, streamer has legs. I don't even know if that part, yeah. Legs. So, to answer your question in detail, no, you typically don't rinse beans because if you're doing them the proper way, the long way, you soak them. You put the same amount of water I used there. That was 8 cups of water for a pound of beans. You soak them, and that's an overnight soak. They'll sit in your fridge or in a cool place in the water for 12 hours. Long time. And then you also cook it twice. So it is going to go into simmering water to soften, and then it goes, that gives you just plain cooked beans, which is not the same water you soaked it in. You want to discard the soaking water and get new water. And then, if you want to make something else out of the beans, you're cooking them again after that. In our case, because we have a pressure cooker available, we are skipping the soaking step and we're going to throw it in the pressure cooker for a half an hour. If they were pre-soaked, you can also do pressure cooker with the pre-soak. My guide for this thing says you pressure cook them for 5 minutes if you do the pre-soak, followed by a slow depressurization. So it still takes some time. So no, you don't need to rinse dry beans before you cook them. With a pressure cooker, they don't take... With a pressure cooker, they still take around 2 hours to make baked beans. To make regular plain beans that you could then use for other things, that's going to take you under an hour, but still not the fastest thing in the world. Dry beans store super well because they are so sturdy, but also because they are so sturdy, it takes some work to get them to edible. Liz is correct in the modern sense of rice that we like to rinse our rice in order to remove the starches that make it gluey, which also means you don't rinse your rice if you're making sushi or risotto or any of those things where you want the rice to be sticky, because then you would get rid of those starches that are what makes your rice sticky. Um, in the traditional, as in way back of rice, you rinsed your rice because your rice was probably very dirty. And also because the rice sinks and a lot of the things you don't want that might be mixed in with the rice would float. So you would put your rice into the water, which would clear away the dirt and also bits of debris, maybe bugs, if your rice wasn't stored well and the bugs got into it, would float out. Same thing with beans. When you soak them, all the sort of gnarly bits float. If you ever put your beans into soak and any of the beans themselves float, throw those away. That's the most obvious thing is if the beans float, throw them away. Beans shouldn't float. Um, it's the same. It's like the same logic behind always peeling your root vegetables. Modern produced root vegetables that you'd get in the grocery store have been cleaned so thoroughly that you can just eat the skins. But if you've ever gotten one from the farmer's market, where they're just pulling out of the ground and sort of washing it off, you might get little bits of grit in there, and peeling it would get rid of those. So some of the traditions stem back. Now, as I mentioned, rice also has the benefit of giving you those nice individual grains because the starches that make them stick get washed away. Whereas beans, yeah, beans have a skin. You don't need to soak lentils or split peas or split mung beans. They skip the soaking step. They can go right into the simmering cooking step. So if you're intending to cook with any of those, skip that part. And then if you are worried about the cleanliness of them, give them a quick rinse just to be sure, but you probably don't need that either. Yeah. So they're going to be in there. They're pressure cooking for a half hour, and then it's slow release, not fast release. So we have to wait for it to either tell me that it's depressurized enough to open it or let it sit locked for 20 minutes before I depressurize it. And then we're going to do that again after we add the other stuff. So that's going to take us better part of 2 hours, which is why I wanted to get that in right away and why I didn't want to start too late. The other half of what we're making is completely the opposite and is super fast, so I have lots of time to chit chat. The other half of what we're making is Johnnycakes, which I should get at least grab ingredients for. We can discuss if I want to make any modifications. The basic Johnny cake is cornmeal, water, and usually lard or rendered bacon fat, and that's it. It's a cornmeal pancake. It's a savory cornmeal cake. Who has the time to brain power to think about cooking beans in advance? Well, used to be you had to, which is why you'd make a big... Oh, this isn't Depression era cooking. We're going way farther back than Depression era cooking. Johnny cakes and baked beans were what was eaten during the Revolutionary War. After Britain cut supply lines. It's filling, highly nutritious, and made entirely of locally grown ingredients. Beans and corn. They're native to the US. And Boston baked beans are so named because the method of cooking was, not with the pressure cooker, was developed in Boston. And also, they were eating that. It was tweaked from earlier recipes. The Americans got it from the Native Americans who had been eating essentially this way longer. This is ancient food, which is why the ingredients are so simple. Now we're modifying the beans into Boston baked beans because I really like Boston baked beans with molasses and bacon and some onion, which would not be traditional. Traditional actually would be maple syrup, because again, super ancient. That was the main sugar available. I don't know what the fat would be. I don't know what pre-contact cooking oils were used. They weren't using butter because they didn't have cattle. They weren't using lard because they didn't have hogs. They were... I'm going to do some research. We're going to find out. Again, I've got time. Johnnycakes don't take very long. That takes a long time. I have another activity we can do at some point as well. There's some weird Pringles flavors here that I think were rolled out for Memorial Day, so we're going to try those at some point. But I'm going to do some research right now. We're going to find out. Probably rendered deer fat, because I know that's the traditional fat in pemmican is rendered venison fat. Yeah, corn and beans. You get out to the plains, you'd get bison. Bison have quite a bit of accessible fat, and once you render an animal fat, it preserves quite well. Um, North America wouldn't have had peanuts. I don't want to just read. Rendered fat from animals. In the far north. Ooh, bear fat. Ooh. That's the kind of thing. That's the kind of deer. Deer is seems the most likely. They're abundant. They have fatty parts of their body that you could render out. Obviously, if you live in a place with bison, bison is going to be preferred. If you live in a place with seals, the far north, seal fat is going to be preferred. This one, I'm reading right here, suggests rendered bear fat, which I could see working pretty well because bears get really fatty in the fall. But that would be really pungent, gamey. Bear tends to be very gamey in flavor. But maybe they want that. I don't know. I don't know what the cuisine was like overall. Okay, that gives us a general idea. Deer seemed the most seems the most like it. They still do that today. You can still do that literally today with just hunting some deer. Anyone near an ocean would get salt just from having seawater available. All right, I'm making sure that thing clicks in. It's just one tick below. We're watching the pressure cooker, which is there. There. Next to the dishes I did last night. Flemish, howdy. We're currently just chit-chatting a little bit while I should prep some ingredients, but we've got a lot of time on that. We got a tall can of Budweiser to go with beans and Johnnycakes. Funny you should say that. I got a tall can too. We'll be taste testing those when I run out of things to talk about. Um, yeah, these are pretty simple. These are pretty simple recipes. I've got a jug of molasses. Um, the most non-traditional Worcestershire sauce. Um, which we could split with some soy if I wanted to make the flavors a little bit more complex. Um, Worcestershire would be something that at the Boston baked beans era would be available because that would have been brought in from England. I'm not sure what, because a salty fermented juice is something that has been invented a million times all over the world as well. Um, so there might even be one lost to time. This might be the healthiest meal I've ever made. No, because we're going to break out a brick of lard later. That's coming. Don't worry. I've also got a stick of butter. There's going to be butter and lard in this. Speaking of which, I have to get the butter out and the lard out so they warm up a little bit to room temp. Assembling things. We're going to need an onion. I only have massive onions and red onions. We could throw some garlic in. You guys are looking at nothing. There's the top of my head. Let's put you there so when I put an onion up there, you can see it. The bacon is frozen. We're using bacon instead of salt pork because that's the more traditional version now. Probably just going to use that whole knob there. I could write up this recipe. It's a pretty simple recipe. The pressure cooker does all the work. If you got a multi-pot, the multi-pot does all the work. It's fabulous. Let me grab a board. I'm gonna chop that onion while I'm chit-chatting. How's everyone's morning? How are things? So many people showed up bright and early. I'm surprised. I thought it was going to be a struggle to get you guys to notice, but here we are. Let me tell you, pleasantly surprised that all y'all turned up in the morning. Apparently it's Europe time. I tried to do morning streams on Saturdays and turnout was very poor. So I kind of gave up on them. Maybe we should try more mornings. I don't do breakfasty stuff very often because I'm not up at the right time. Anyways, like I said, I got some time to just chit chat and learn things. And think about how I'm going to get the inside of the pressure pot visible for stage 2 of the beans. We won't even attempt the Johnny cakes until the beans are well into stage the second cook, the second major cook, because otherwise they'll get cold. So it's gonna be a minute. Gonna be a minute. Pizza pocket chicken nuggies for breakfast. Today's a holiday. Right. Well, I thought maybe with today being a holiday, people would have plans and would be out doing plans. After all, that's the reason I'm here early, is because I have plans later. I'm going to take the layer off of that one. That layer looks a little bit gnarly. But I've also had the comment before of, I'm on too late for Europeans who might want to stick around more. Selena just mentioned it. So maybe just throwing in a morning. I guess Saturday didn't work out. That was a while ago now. I don't know. I need to broaden my horizons. I think I'm in a rut. Not of the actual food, but in the scheduling. Yep. This one definitely looks a little bit gnarly. The onion is going to end up running through the pressure cooker, so it's not imperative that it be perfect. But the leathery bits run the risk of being leathery even through a long cook, so we're gonna get those off. Electric coffee grinder. Now you're a person who grinds coffee. Our pressure pot just beeped. We are on our official 30-minute countdown for beans, or for stage 1 of beans. Reuse at the dog park. Nothing else planned. Liz is playing Diablo. Saw I was live. I did ping. I don't normally ping in Discord. Oh, speaking of which, talking of which, let's pin up that. I don't normally ping in Discord, but because this was an unusual time, I decided to do so. And there's our Discord. Another bowl. I'm going to chop up the bacon while we're chopping stuff. I figured it coming in at a non-standard time, I would give everyone a ping, just in case they were not watching. I know I don't like getting pinged a lot. Spear. 100 bits. But why? Oh. For de-rutting. That's a lot of bacon. I'm going to slice this up. This is a very fatty bacon, too. This is the end of this entire bag of gnarly stuff. I bought this bacon ages ago, froze it, and it was so much, it took up so much awkward room that I've been trying to get through it. It's delicious bacon. And yeah, I know I should set up roles and do all the Discord stuff, but counterpoint, I can't be arsed. I don't have a Discord bot. I have done next to nothing on the front of making Discord. Make my own bacon on stream. Well, we could do that, but we're not doing that for a long time, for multiple reasons. The most pertinent of which is I still have a ton of bacon in my freezer. These really fatty bits on the side, I might not chop all of the fat up into our... Definitely want some of the fat in there, but we might not want that whole block. And we could use it to supplement the lard for the Johnny cake. Anyways, thank you, Mr. Spear, for the 100 bits. That means you're the top bitter. You got bit. I'm going to take that fat cap off of these. I think that's too much. I think that's too much fat for the beans to be put directly into the beans. I know, there's lots of things I should do. I also don't have a bot here on actual Twitch, which is something I should do. Because then I could have, like, the bot respond to alerts and things. You know, like a streamer does. I even got a little Bluetooth earpiece, because I remember way back at the beginning, I tried using a headset in here, and I got a wireless headset. In part because I didn't have the lapel mic and I needed the headset part, but also because I was gonna try doing sound alerts where I could hear what's going on. And the headset was just a pain in the kitchen. And at some point, in between then and now, I did get a little earpiece, a little Bluetooth earpiece, so that I could listen in for potential sound effects. And then I never set up the sound effects. Three little pieces of bacon fat. And some bacon. Aw, that's nice of you to say, Ray. Wow, I'm popular. That never happened before. Onions, and bacon, and the rest of it is juices. The rest of it is juicy liquids. We'll see what I want to do with the extra bacons, but I'm going to assemble some juicy liquids. Juicy. We do need straight up a cup of plain old water, which I will get over here at the sink, because we're going to dump out all the water that's in the beans at the moment, and the pressure cooker needs at least a cup of water to work with when it tries to build pressure. So we have to start with a cup of water. Then we add stuff to that. I'm not doing that because I know that I'll be serving it to some people later who are spice sensitive. I would put some more spice in it myself, but I want it to be group friendly. So for spicing, you will have to spice on the fly. Besides, baked beans are typically a sweet, savory thing, not so much a sweet, spicy thing, or savory, spicy thing. If I was making refried beans, frijoles refritos, those typically are spiced. This is a northern recipe. The spiciest thing they'll run across is usually mayonnaise. I'm cooking for myself, but because the reason I'm here early is I'm going to a traditional-ish get-together in the afternoon, and we're going to be having grilled stuff, and I'm bringing beans. So we're making the beans that I'm going to be bringing. And then I'm also going to be having beans for lunch here. Neither brown sugar nor maple. We are using straight up molasses. Although the Native American traditional sweetened beans and also the southern Atlantic coast would prefer maple over molasses. Molasses is what makes it the Boston baked bean. Speaking of which, we need to mole our asses. White woman beans. Yeah, I'm making a mess. Molasses is famously slow, but also dense and sticky. And I'm going to have to clean that jug because it's going to make a mess. Rinse my finger off in there. So no, our sweet component is just molasses. The last time I made it for myself, I did half molasses, half maple syrup. But that was mostly because I didn't have enough molasses. I have been on a quest to use up things. So we've actually cleared the garlic oil, cleared the weird flavorless chili oil, cleared a bunch of... We're clearing stuff. Not the freezer, which is the thing I should be. I should probably have done that. I dropped it in the water so the water could do that. Dissolve some of the goop out for me. Molasses is difficult to work with. The cap has a spout, but the spout is on the wrong side. It points towards the handle, which is not massively useful. I didn't notice that until I got home. The spout is over there. I don't know why. And it's not like it can be screwed the other way. It only screws in that direction. Anyways, yeah, I just dropped it in there because then I can swirl it around to loosen it up even use my finger. I'm not super worried about using my finger because this stuff is going to be boiled at way hotter than boiling temperature for a long time. So any finger bits that get in there. I washed my hands before we started, so it's not like I'm just coming in from naked hands. But we also need to use this for the Worcestershire. Yeah, I washed my hands before we started. I always wash my hands before we started because I usually clean a bunch of stuff up. But when I am serving stuff to people, I do need to be. I'm rather cavalier about it when I am just cooking for myself. I will wash my hands briefly. But when I'm cooking for others, I do need to be cognizant that I'm cooking for others. If they wouldn't want me sticking my fingers in their mouth, then I shouldn't stick my fingers in things that aren't going to be blitzed beyond their lives. As long as I don't lose a finger. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. Okay. That's 4 of molasses and 4 tablespoons of molasses and 4 tablespoons of Worcestershire, which is quite a bit of Worcestershire. But the end volume of what we're making is quite big, so you need quite a lot. That because turns out when you cook beans, they get bigger. Hence, quite a lot of onion, quite a lot of bacon, because both of those get smaller when you cook them. Is there anything else I want to add? We could do some garlic. We could do a little bit of garlic powder, which I would mix into the juice. Look at that thing wiggle. Look at that thing wiggle. There it goes. You don't really need to go super. It's meant to be a side dish, so it doesn't want to be hugely complex. Although we're serving it as a main dish on top of the Johnnycakes, which are themselves very simple. So I could goose it up. A little bit of black pepper wouldn't go wrong, but I might take that in at the end instead of right now. You get some garlicky flavor from the Worcestershire. You know what I mean. Worcestershire sauce. We're already putting in onions. We could throw in a little bit of browning or a little bit of Maggi. Maggi would give it a little bit of depth without really affecting the flavor that much. We'll just give it a couple shots of Maggi. I don't think I'm going to go with ginger. I don't want to go too far off the beaten path with this one. Yeah, and then we need cornmeal. Capers. Capers would give you a pickly flavor. This is not. There's no acidic components in this. At least not the one I make. Let's do some research. Boston baked beans. You should add rum. Rum is something I don't have, but it's not actually that wild of a suggestion to want to add something like rum. I have rye that we could add a little bit of. But again, this is something that is cooked slowly over a long time. Any alcohol would cook out of this. Boston style baked beans in the clay pot. Beans, bacon, brown sugar. I went with just molasses. White pepper, dry mustard, salt. Instead of salt, I'm using Worcestershire sauce. I think it gives us some more depth. Mustard. Mustard is an interesting idea. I'm just grabbing some random recipes and seeing what they throw in them, because this is one of those ones that's hard to screw up. This one uses salt pork, brown sugar, and molasses. Mustard again, garlic powder, and cloves. Interesting. Interesting. So some of that warm spice, some of those warm spices are coming in on these. The bacon. Nobody's including onions. I like onions in mine. Well, that one has an onion in it. Mustard again. An ad pops up. That one has a little bit of vinegar in it. So it's not out of the realm. Oh, Liz is running us down. Liz is running through the things that I'm saying. Mustard, warm spices, apple cider vinegar. We have options for vinegar. Apple cider vinegar would be the most classic option. It's a little bit sweet. It has that slight appley flavor that goes really well with the pork that we already have because bacon. I recommend using bacon instead of salt pork. It tastes better, and also it's way easier to get now. I've looked at a bunch of old recipes that use salt pork. We made one. We made Hellfire Stew, which uses salt pork. When these recipes were concocted, salt pork was the default. But now salt pork, you can get it, but it's more expensive than bacon. And apple cider vinegar. It's more expensive than bacon. So it's not like the economical choice. I do have that. I do in fact have some black vinegar. I've also got regular rice vinegar and some red wine vinegar. But I think cider is our choice. I think cider is going to be our choice here. Again, I don't want to go too far off the deep end with this one. And we don't want to add too much of this. Well, I'm only adding that much, which is actually more than this recipe calls for. That was a half tablespoon. This one calls for just a teaspoon. You don't want a lot. Vinegar will this one uses salt pork and bacon. I have noticed that they are all on the same proportion. You want half a pound of your pork product to 1 pound of dry beans. So that's your standard. And then, yeah, I didn't add salt because I went with Worcestershire because I think Worcestershire gives more interest. Okay. 6 minutes on that. 6 minutes of that. We drain that. We cook the things and then we put it back in. We have a little bit of time to kill. We need to make the Johnny cakes during the second cook. I want to get that on camera somewhere. I'm not moving it now because it is currently pressurized and full of water. But once it's out, I'm going to attempt to move the pot, the magic pot, to the middle of the stove. We'll see how visible that is. Unless I put it here, I have a plug in the back. I have a plug in the back. We could just put it there and then slide it back over when we're done. The inner pot is going to be very hot, so I'll have to move the whole thing with it in there. Maybe we won't have to move the whole thing with it in there. Oh, I say it's 5 minutes. It's not 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes plus a depressurizing time. Where did I put the instruction book? Oh, here it is. Don't forget to keep your instruction book handy for reference when you're ever like, what was that? Navy beans. High. 15-minute depressurize. Okay. Let's keep that handy. Yeah, and then Johnny cakes go during the second part. So, hey, you guys want to taste test some weird Pringles? You want to taste test some weird Pringles real quick while we have some time to kill? Because we aren't going to even make the Johnny cake batter until part 2. So these, I got 2. I got 2 because they were the only weird ones, the weird new ones. So this isn't going to take super long. They were together and they were buy 2 or a deal when you bought 2. So they were trying to push the idea of buying both of them. They are both beer flavored. This one is beer and brats. This one is beer and chicken. I'm not a massive fan of Pringles. These weird concoctions got me wondering enough that I want to try them. So, which one do you want to try first? Oh, they have differently numbered lids. This one's B54 and this one's B22. For you, it says brats. Liz says brats. Let's try the brats first. So, grilled beer brat, beer flavored Pringles. Freshly opened. Whoa! 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 Those have a smell. Whoa! Those have a distinction to them. Wow. They smell like cheap beer. They don't smell like good beer. They smell like cheap beer. Weird. They smell a lot weirder than they taste. Um, Tastes like a Pringle. Little bit of that beer flavor on the back end, but not really strong up front. What did I get up front? There was something I got up front. I gotta try another one because it went away real fast. It's got a weird sweetness to it in the front. And then a savoriness, and then it's not a really strong savory flavor. I feel like they're trying to emulate the sort of mild porky flavor of a brat. Brats don't typically have a really strong seasoning on them. But because it is so light, it just kind of falls into the Pringle potato flavor really quickly. And then toward the end, you get that sort of lingering taste that is like you were drinking a very weak beer. Contains no actual pork. I I like it. I like it more than regular Pringles, which is interesting. It has a really distinct flavor right at the front. And then it does definitely have that sort of beer flavor to it. I guess I was expecting a little more because the name of the thing is grilled beer brat. I guess I was expecting them to put in a little bit more of the grill element. Some of that, maybe a little bit of smoke, maybe a little bit of char, just a hint of that grill in there. I'm getting none of that grill. Um, I think the flavor they've got is if you boiled beer brats and then didn't grill them, because they don't have that developed flavor from then being put on high dry heat. Um, but I suppose if they put liquid smoke, because they would put liquid smoke in. Um, it does say light, so that yeah, they're going for that. They're going for that kind of a beer flavor. Um, if they put liquid smoke in it, I bet you it would overpower everything. It would cut because the rest of these flavors are rather mild, mild enough that they're not overwhelming the potato flavor of the Pringle. It's interesting that I like them more than standard Pringles, which I'm not a big fan of standard Pringles. Um, they're less strongly flavored than normal flavored Pringles, which is odd for a special limited edition thing that is itself. That's a Miller Lite can. It doesn't say Miller on it. That's a Miller Lite can. Um, I'm surprised that they would have that much restraint. You know, knowing how these companies always go. Try the other one. Try the other one. Beer can chicken is a completely different animal to a beer brat. Beer brat is simmered in beer and then grilled. Beer can chicken is stuffed with a full can of beer and then you don't usually grill it. You put it in, I mean, they got it on the grill here, but you put it in a smoker. Um, but the chicken should be a prominent flavor in here because it's a prominent flavor. They're a slightly different color. Oh, and it smells extremely different too. It does not smell like cheap beer this time. It smells. You know what it smells like? You know what it smells like? I know what it smells like. It smells like that. It smells just like this. Um, Not even like proper chicken bouillon. It smells like that fake chicken bouillon, that kind that you get in those instant packets. That's what it smells like. Ooh, and they got quite a bit of the dust on the back. Well, I asked for chicken flavor, and you know what I got? Chicken flavor. You ever had those chicken in a biscuit crackers? That's this. Which is, I suppose, fine. Way less interesting than this one. This one, I had a lot more to say about it because it is interesting. It's definitely got some interest to it. This one, I'm not getting any of that beer flavor, which makes sense because you don't taste the beer in a beer can chicken. The beer can is there to prevent the chicken from drying out. It doesn't really impart much flavor. Whereas in your beer brat, you infuse it with beer flavor by boiling it in the beer, in the cheap beer. This one tastes like they put the flavor's not real strong. It's not like overwhelmingly strong, but it's definitely that's what they got. They didn't even put like barbecue sauce on it. It's just like roast chicken flavor. I'm seeing if there's any actual chicken in it. There's two different kinds of yeast in it, and milk. Weird. Uh, Paprika for color. Garlic, onion. Yeah. No actual chicken. Are the chips smaller now? Maybe? It's been a long time since I had Pringles, so I'm not sure. There's definitely quite a bit of room in the side of the can. On both of them, so that's the standard. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they made them slightly smaller to save money. Well, if you see these and you're interested in them, this one very much just tastes like chicken seasoning on Pringles, which isn't bad, but it's not like all that special. This one is doing something that I don't think I could accomplish without a lot of awkward work. Um, yeah, I could figure it out. It'd be a thing with with a beer and I was gonna say deer. Beer and maltodextrin, which might even be in here. There's molasses in this. There's beer extract in this. You can't see it. This is real tiny. There's actual beer in this chip. This one is quite interesting. This one I think is worth checking out. This one, if you like chicken, if you like those chicken crackers, you'll like this because that's what this tastes like, except with that pringly potato-ness to it. And hey, that's almost chewed up our time on the pressure cooker, so that's good. Anyways, that's my taste test of these odd limited edition Pringles. Again, I'm not a big Pringles fan. I don't think I'm gonna do taste tests of Pringles. I want to run something by you guys. How would you feel about just a taste test stream? No cooking, just that taste testing. Dizan, hi, welcome in. Get in here. Come on. What are you doing? We're just looking at the thing. You just missed the weird Pringles because I needed to kill some time, so I got some weird Pringles. We got about 5 minutes on the pressure cooker before we release the pressure. Then we can do part 2 when the cooking actually becomes active again instead of me just standing around waffling at you guys. Where's my water glass? I've been talking a lot. I need my water glass. Just a full taste test. Well, I bring this up because I have assembled more than 40 bottles of sriracha because I'm a fool. With the intent of tasting them. So obviously this only took like 10 minutes to go through 2 of these, so we could extrapolate that out to how big of a sample I would need to make that the only thing I do for a day. Taste tests and ranking stuff is weirdly popular, and I watch it too, so I understand that it's popular, but I also think it's weird that it's popular. I'm going to move the board because I'm going to bring, yes, different. Not just 40 separate bottles, 40 different bottles. I'm moving the board. Hi, Sosleys. I'm moving the board. We're prepping the space for nonsense. So the sriracha thing started because I noticed. You remember Hui Fong, the main sriracha, the rooster sriracha, had a pepper shortage. They had some crop failures, and there was just a shortage of sriracha. Prior to that, there had been other brands of sriracha, but they weren't being given shelf space, and there weren't nearly as many of them. But a whole bunch of brands jumped in that window, and they are all still around now. And more importantly, they're actually being given space on the shelves. So I'm able to get them locally. They said it was crop failures and it was a legal battle. Well, whatever the cause, you couldn't get Hui Fong Sriracha for a while, and a bunch of other brands jumped in. And I have tasted two of them. Oh God, I've only tasted two of them, other than Hui Fong, which is in here. Um, only tasted two of them. But some of them are like real different. And I already have them, so it's not like I have to buy them. I shouldn't have bought them, but I did. So we have them. Everything from Hui Fong to Trader Joe's brand to Shark Strong and Buldak. You know the fire chicken, the angry fire chicken? You know the angry fire chicken? The angry fire chicken made a sriracha. I bet you that one's really hot. Anyways, I need to set aside some time to do that. I also think that would be a good one to record and edit into a thing. Miss Sepsi, happy Memorial Day. Welcome, welcome. We are just seconds away from releasing the pressure on our pot. I will bring you guys up here. You can see the sun hitting my window, which is something you normally never get to see because I cook in the afternoon and the morning is in that direction. We are seconds away from releasing our pressure pot, and then we can move on to some active cooking because everything was contingent on getting through the first chunk of this thing cooking. And there we are. So, release. I never know if you guys can hear that. It's very loud for me when we do this. A loud, angry hiss. Oh, I need a colander. It's very loud for me. I feel like I have to raise my voice to talk over it. We need a colander and we need the pot holders because that pot in there is very hot. Whole point of a pressure cooker is that it boils at a higher temperature, which means the metal pot is hotter than boiling, despite being full of water. So, colander is in the sink. We're going to pour that out. Then we're going to transfer the magic pot over to the main worktop so that I can do that in front of you instead of standing in the corner. But then it's going to go back over there because we're going to repressurize things. But we have to wait for it to beep to confirm to me. I should probably put those dishes away too. Those dishes, those clean dishes that are right behind it there. That was me doing a hissing sound effect, yeah. Okay. Beans. We turn it off. We don't need that to be on now. We retrieve the pot itself. And we discard the water. volume of beans has increased massively. Beans get huge when you cook them. I mean, it is a green screen. See? You don't think food is real, do you? The thing is quite heavy. The thing is quite heavy. And does it bang on the... No, it does not. Perfect. Boop. Hey! I think we've seen this view once before, but not in a while. Yeah, food is an illusion. There's a little bit of bean debris on the inside of the pot, so I'm going to wipe that out. I'll bring the pot over here with you. There's the pot. There's a little bit of bean debris up at the high water line, so we're just going to get some of that out, because it'll just burn a little bit if we leave it as is. And then part 2, same pot, magic pot, turn it on, should default to saute, it does. Turn it on, add your bacon. We need that to render out its bacon fats. Bean debris on the high water line. Already sizzling because the pot was pre-hotted from having just been hotting. The bacon does not need to be cooked super thoroughly, because we are going to be leaving it in there when we return this to the pressure pot, or return this to pressure mode. So it's going to go through a full pressure cook as well. We just need it to render enough of the fat out of the fatty parts that we can use that to saute the onion, because we want to develop some flavor with the onion. Wet cooking, like simmering, boiling, braising, pressure cooking, precludes you from developing the deeper flavors that come from the Maillard reaction, which is what you get from high heat dry cooking. And that's literally the brown bits when you brown something. And it is, there's a bunch of science behind it. It's a reaction between sugars and amino acids in the food, so you can only get the Maillard reaction in something that has both of those. So if it's just sugars, it just caramelizes, but it is similar to caramelization. It's caramelization that is including amino acids. I don't fully understand the science behind it. My reading suggests that people in general did not understand the science behind it until very recently. It is something that is not that easy to study. Also, the bottom pot of one of these guys, you saw that gray circle with the little dot in the middle. That right there is a induction cooker. So you can see how quickly this heated up to frying temp. In part, the pot was already warm from having just pressure cooked. But in part, it's because that's how fast induction cooktops heat up. They heat up very fast compared to all other cookers. We are getting a good amount of the fat coming out of there. I'm going to let it go a little bit longer before I throw the onions in. Ooh, very smoky too. Should I add? Should I add a dash of liquid smoke? Just really smoke up our beans. It's not too late. It's not too late, and I've got some good high quality liquid smoke. And you only need a teensy tiny bit of it. Add a like a quarter teaspoon of Stubbs. Where's my quarter tea? Add a quarter teaspoon of Stubbs just to amp it up a little bit. Okay, the bacon is browning, so we're going to eat that heat. I'm actually going to take the temperature down by 1 tick. We would like a little bit of color on the onions before we put everything back in, because there's no way we're going to get that once the liquids are in there. Again, I'm not really worried about the onions being cooked super thoroughly, because they are going to be pressure cooked, which means they're going to basically turn to mush once we get that far. I think we're going to add just a quarter teaspoon of Stubbs. If you're looking for a liquid smoke, a lot of liquid smokes are... Why am I still angled? I've tried some liquid smokes. The cheap ones tend to be very bad. I quite like Stubbs brand here. It's not just pure liquefied smoke. It's got flavor elements to it. But I think it does a really good job of being nicely balanced. Instead of that sort of chemically... Liquid smokes can get kind of chemically. I turned my heat up a little bit because my sizzling died down, which is the downside to sauteing in the Instant Pot. They're not really... They're aiming for a temperature because they have the temperature sensors, so they're not really good at the consistent heat the way a normal burner is. Also, the pot they give you is rather thin-walled, so it does lose heat while you're cooking. Anyways, I'm going to throw my quarter... I'm going to drop the lid of my Stubbs in the... underneath the fridge. The only place I never clean. Wonderful. We're just going to throw a quarter teaspoon of that into our liquid mix. Again, you don't want to go... Even nicer liquid smokes, you don't want to go real strong with. They tend to be quite potent, so you only need a little bit. And yeah. How's our sizzle going? How's our sizzle looking? Anybody getting brown bits? We do have a little bit of brown in bits stuck to the bottom, but I think that's entirely from the bacon. Okay, I think that is about what I'm shooting for. So, off. Bring back the beans, which have been in the sink this whole time. As you can see, there's quite a lot more than we started with. Quite a lot more than we started with. It smells like bacon and onions. It's what it smells like. We are... I've turned the heating element off, stirring it through so that the bacon and onions are reasonably mingled, but I don't want to mash my beans very much. And then we throw in all of our liquid. Which likewise, we give a quick stir. Make sure everybody's intermingled. And now this guy's going back in the corner so it can pressure cook again. And Isosceles is being creepy. Okay. Now it's heavy because it's full of stuff. We'll close the lid so I don't tip this thing over. Keep the weight balanced. The lid is very heavy on this thing, which I think it has to be in order to function. Turn it back on. It doesn't know that we have moved it. We lock it in. Since it's hot, it should pressurize fairly quickly. Okay. Beans. Beans are going. Johnnycakes. The Johnnycakes aren't they aren't as fast as pancakes. They're a little bit slower than pancakes. That reminds me, I put my baking sheets in the oven to dry, but then I didn't put the oven on, so they're just kind of wet. I guess I'll just leave them in there temporarily while the oven warms up. We're putting the oven to its lowest possible setting because I'm going to store the Johnnycakes in the oven as we make them so that they stay warm. And also apparently because I need to dry those 2 baking sheets that I put in there that I forgot were in there. So Johnnycakes. I did a whole bunch of reading about Johnnycakes. And there seems to be a lot of disagreement. It is more about a end result than a process. Aren't Johnny Cakes some sort of mutant cross between biscuits and pancakes? Kinda, sorta, but no, but also no. The most basic form of Johnny Cakes is just cooked cornmeal that is then fried into a cake. Oftentimes things will be mixed into it. It'll be flavored, it'll be seasoned, but that's the most. Sometimes they'll put baking soda or baking powder and flour in to make it more of a biscuity thing. No, but also no. We're gonna make a pretty basic one, but not a completely basic one. We're gonna use this cornmeal that I've been chipping through for a while. I don't know precisely how much is in here. So no and no. Oop, and did I get wet on my cornmeal? No. There's a drip of bean juice on my table, worktop, whatever this is, and a rubber band, which just came off the cornmeal. That's where that came from. I'm not losing my mind. So, I don't know which recipe to use for Johnny Cakes. I know what they're kind of supposed to look like at the end. And I have a scooper. But that might be too small. We'll find out. We're going to find out together. I've never made these. Eventually, I will run out of things that I can say I've never made. But today is not that day. So, I still have the same corn. I got to get a container for the cornmeal because I have another bag of cornmeal. Because I figured, oh, I'll use this one up. I figured this one's almost done. I'll use that one up. I got another one. Well, I apparently don't use it as fast as I thought I did. I can hear the pressure pot doing its pressure thing. I'm not going to measure this out, but about that much salt. That's half a teaspoon maybe. So a little bit more salt. Smidge more salt. A little bit more salt. Some of these add sugar because I think that they're going off of cornbread, and cornbread is usually sweetened. But these predate cornbread. Johnny Cakes predate cornbread. Johnny Cakes predate white settlers in the Americas. They weren't called Johnny Cakes back then, but the idea, like I was talking about at the beginning, is very old. These are probably an offshoot of the original, or possibly tortillas are the offshoot. These things definitely have an ancestry with tortillas. I'm not sure which one goes where, but so that being the case, invented in 1623 by Johnnycakes. But like Southern style Johnny cakes with crispy edges, and it's got flour and cornmeal and baking powder and sugar and salt and eggs and buttermilk, and you're making cornmeal pancakes at that point. The flour and cornmeal and baking powder and eggs and buttermilk. So there does appear to be a set sort of modern version. Who is that? That's him. John a Cake Run. But when I was doing my reading, my research, first of all, there's another thing also called a Johnny cake from, I think, Jamaica. That's more like a bread. If you couldn't tell, I've still got some time to kill, so we can still do education. Um, those are just pancakes. Ah, but those pancakes have only cornmeal, so we're getting closer. This one is from what'scookingamerica.net. Sugar, water, milk, salt, bacon fat for frying them in. But if I go for the one that I actually, if I can find it again. If I can find it again. That's the one. Journal of the American Revolution, which isn't even a cooking site. It's a history site. Has Boston baked beans with a recipe, which we're almost following here. Beans, molasses, salt, ham hock, water. They also have Johnny cake. Ingredients: cornmeal, salt, water. And then a greased skillets to fry them in, which we can use the griddle. And bacon fat. Again, bacon fat. And that's the most basic one I could find. And it's also the oldest one I could find that was written in 1767. But there's discussion of the word for Johnny cake, the word Johnny cake being derived from a Cherokee word that I'm not going to try to pronounce. Shining Spear wants a moisten. Moist. Haven't done a moisten for a while. I know because I have a record of all the redemptions. And at some point, people stopped requesting moistens. But also, we need to moisten that. And I'm going to do that with the kettle. Electric kettle. The fastest way to boil a water. I wish I had a better one that didn't have the exposed coil in the bottom, but this is our life. So I've got 1 cup of the cornmeal and 2 cups of the water, which does not quite fill us to our minimum fill line. So I guess we're going to add a half to that. Which also means I need another half a cup of corn dust. The fastest way. Half a cup of corn dust. Hey, you know what I haven't asked? You know what question I haven't asked? What's everybody having for lunch? Or dinner, because I know we had some Europeans in here for a change, because apparently you guys go to bed at a reasonable time in Europe. What's up with that? Stop being weird. Anyways, that's it. That's all of the ingredients. And then we're going to gussy it up with a little bit of butter at the end. And we should grease up a pan. Get out a griddle. Get out a griddle. Get out a spatula. Ready ourselves for all this nonsense. Honey thyme pork fillet with oven roasted green beans and potatoes. Excuse me? Pardon me? Are you upstaging the chef? What is this nonsense? Chemical! Chemical! Oh my goodness. You know, I haven't shouted out anybody. I haven't shouted out anybody today. Chemical is getting the first shout out. Oops. Where you just got baby back ribs and corn on the cob. Very Memorial Day. Although, corn on the cob is classically later in the summer, because like there isn't fresh corn on the cob right now. Hi Chemical, how you been? Haven't seen you in a hot second. Is it warm in there? It's actually kind of toasty in there. Honestly, I've been better. Life these days has been gestures broadly at current events. We don't need those baking sheets to be in the oven there. Flamingo has HelloFresh. I don't have HelloFresh, but I am a fan of their... I don't particularly like their business model, but the product that they offer within that business model is very good. So... I think HelloFresh has a good product. So take that for what it's worth. This is going to be our griddle, because it is a griddle, for making our Johnnycakes. I think we're going to try to render out this bacon onto the griddle to use up the bacon fat as much as we can. So let's do that. Let's start rendering bacon fat onto our griddle. We're just going to try to cook these until they kind of shrivel up. Working on a wood project, being very supportive by not hovering. Always good. Well, welcome in. If you're not familiar with Chemical Fairy, they stream games, usually in the mornings my time. I lose track. I feel like it used to be at a different time because I would see you and I'd throw in a lurk, but then you moved to a new time and I lost track of it. But happy Memorial Day. I should shout out all the rest of the people in here. What? There's flamingos in here. There's a flamingo. Ah, you switched coasts. That'll be why your schedule changed. Twitch, stop being dumb. Twitch, stop being dumb. What are you doing? It kept trying to insert bracket username in between shoutout and flamingo. Bizarre. Anybody else in here that I missed? Who else is in here? Who else is in here? Liz streams sometimes. Spear streams sometimes. I don't think I've ever seen Raya stream. I don't think I've ever seen Flemish. Spear streams, unexpected stuff. So we're just going to render this bacon. To really grease up this pan with bacon. Because I think that sounds like a tasty decision. Which means we might not need the lard. Oh, well, I didn't know that about you, Ryu. But that is a reasonable reason. Liz's PC keeps crashing. That's unfortunate. I'm keeping mine hanging on by a thread. Whenever people are talking about their graphics cards, I've got an old card, I got a 30 something. Thinking I'm sitting here on a 1070. Well, I wish everyone who wishes to wish well wishes. But yeah, shouts. I don't know how effective shouts are. Bam. Bam. Get shouted at, fools. That'd be something to do to get a bot to do automatically. Just plug in all the friends' names and you're like, shout, shout, shout. Mobile games. I've been looking at puzzle games. I like puzzle games, and I think doing puzzle games on stream would be sort of in my realm of chill semi-edutainment stuff. I know bots can do that because I'm in a bunch of. I'll pop into someone else's channel and their bot will. I'll say something and their bot will leap on me with a aggressive hello. Lego is fun. I want to do more Lego, but Lego is expensive. The unfortunate bit is Lego is expensive, so those have to be spaced out. I really don't have the budget for modern day Legos, so they're kind of special occasions. I do enjoy Lego, and I would like to do more, but it cannot justify the expense of frequent Legos. I think we're going to be right on a good time here. But also, I would play games in the room over there, which is a room you guys never see. But it's where I sit. I've got my Switch is in there. That's where I sit when I'm doing other computery stuff. My desk is in there, but also my comfy chair is in there. I don't want to have to haul my cameras in there, so I would want to like set up a PNG thing, like Empanada has, or used to have. Now she has a real face. Now she's a big fancy real face person. I can turn that down a little bit. But I think that for gaming, yeah, a little PNG, so that it's not just a game, that there's something there, but then I don't have to haul that camera that you can't see, but that's, I mean, that one probably the easiest one to use, but it's also the one I don't want to use. I would use this camera, but this one is the hardest one to move because I have it clamped onto the cabinets. Our bacon grease is smoking, so I think we should probably get rolling on that. Mmm, 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 mmm. Oh, that's tasty. I think I'm going to keep those guys in the corner, just sort of light rendering. Let's turn that down so I don't burn it all. I can make my own little things. I've made my own emotes. I would just do that. I'd make little, I'd make some sort of image. I'd probably just adapt the one I've already got. Because I'm thinking specifically of the one Empanada had, which is just like a little face. When she talks, its mouth opens and it bounces, and that's it. So it's just two images that it switches between. But I think just on the short term, that'd be the easier way to set up rather than trying to haul the cameras in there and then get them set up and framed and all that, and then just to have to move them back. The other option would be to try to play games here in the kitchen, which would be very awkward. Because there is one that I've been wanting to play, and I think it would be an excellent one to play on a stream as well. And as I mentioned at some point, I like puzzle games, and I think puzzle games are chill enough to work with my vibe. Plate. Those are we can tinker with that. That's something that I can look at getting set up. The game I'm thinking of is The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, which is a classic style, is a recent 2023 classic style point and click puzzle adventure. So pixely, looks like Monkey Island era, Sam & Max era, pixely stuff, but it was made just a couple years ago, and it won a bunch of awards for being really good at being a point and click in that classic point and click style. And I got it on sale on GOG, so I also have a copy to play. Oh, Violet. Violet hasn't streamed in forever. Violet had a kid, if I understand. But that's approximately sort of the vibe and speed I was thinking of for games. If you've been around a while, you might recall ages ago, quite a few ages ago, I played here on this very channel Mario Kart on the Switch because I have a capture device. And it was reasonably fun. But for some reason my sound was screwed up and I was getting the sound. Stream was hearing the sound perfectly. I was hearing the sound with a half-second delay, which was awful for something as reaction-y as Mario Kart, and it would be impossible to play anything with a higher reaction requirement. I've got the temperature turned down on the bacon fat here because it was smoking quite a bit. These things, these globs, have given up most of their life to this cause. I do have the lard available as well as a little bit of extra pre-bacon fat here if I need to re-grease the pan. But I figured as long as we have those, we will use those. My water is boiling. I'll wait for that thing to actually click. We've got a few minutes left on our beans. No, it wasn't even that. Because I was getting a delayed audio from... The delay was happening inside of OBS somehow. So it was feeding me a delay on the monitoring channel while it was sending out the regular audio. It was weird. It was weird, and I hated it, and I, at the time, said, this is solvable, and had some reasonable ideas about how to solve it. But since gaming isn't really my thing here on the channel, I didn't really put a lot of effort into it, and, well, here we are, having not solved it. Okay, boiling water into our cornmeal. Half a stick of butter into our cornmeal. No, because it was, no, I had puzzled out what was causing it, probably, but then I didn't actually go through the steps to fix it because again I unhooked everything, brought it all back in here, hooked it all up in here, and by the time that had gone through, I just said screw it, and that was also pre lapel mic era, so I was on the headset. Um, don't forget, there was a pre lapel mic era of stream, which you can go back and check out, where my sound was even worse than it is now. And I hated it. Because the thing is, if you're sitting still a lot, the headset's fine. If you're doing what I do, which is walk over here, turn around, the headset's too weighty. So I have that headset. I still have that headset. It's decent. It's like a good headset, but it was awful for this. Probably should have chopped up that butter so it would melt a little bit faster. There's no gluten in corn, so there's no concern about overworking this. Well, there's no realistic concern about overworking this. We're looking for the consistency of mashed potato, which I have. I just want that last little knob of butter to dissolve or melt. And then we're going to bring the heat back up on our griddle. We're going to start griddling Johnnycakes. There's 3 minutes left on the main pressure cook, but then it again has to slow depressurize. So we have plenty of time. And then that's going to be what we serve, is beans and Johnnycakes. This is hot. It is no longer smoking hot, which is good. Although we'll have to turn it back up. Let's get those little rendered goobers off of the side there. Okay, that last little bit of butter has melted. We can stir it in. Bring you guys over here with me. Deposit our rendered out nuggets there. I'll snack on those. Maybe. Probably. Make sure we've got a pot holder. Oop. We're going to take the little burnt on bits. Get rid of those as well. That is protein from the bacon that extracted in the heat because I froze it. Possibly a little bit of some sugars because obviously they're curing bacon, and curing is usually both salt and sugar. But the heat's coming back up, and we're going to start making cakes. There's nothing else in these Johnny cakes. You can make more elaborate Johnny cakes with that become more like biscuits, with baking soda or baking powder and regular wheat flour, so they become more cakey. Which is what you'll find with a lot of modern recipes for it. They'll often also put sugar in it because they're treating them like cornbread, and cornbread you want to sweeten usually. Let's see how sticky it is if I can. I don't think I can reliably press them out yet. Nope. Again, I never made these, so we have to practice the process. And that one was a fail. The things I read about them at this stage is you have to let them sit. And I was just seeing if I could get away with the oily spatula pressing them out. That one's going to be a bit of a mess. But we're making like 1700s era, possibly earlier. This is probably was only written down in 1700s. And I probably shouldn't have done 5 of them. But we need the bottoms to brown enough. We need the bottom to set enough that we can get under there and flip the thing. And then we should be able to press it on the other side without it sticking to our spatula. And it supposedly takes quite a time for these things to fry to the point where you can flip them. Not nearly as fast as a pancake. They'll just sort of, reportedly, they'll just kind of shred apart if you do them wrong, or if you do them too early. They do seem to be working, though. And then that one, and then you... Yeah. That's what I was looking for. That one closest to us. That's what I was expecting. We'll flip these guys a couple more times as we go. But that's what I was expecting to have happen. The fried bit gives you purchase so that you can flip it and press it. You do need a little bit more room than I gave myself. So I think for future batches we're not doing 5. I did 5 because the picture of the one that I thought looked the best had 5 cooking in the pan at the same time. And I was like, that looks cool. But yeah, 5 is too much. They look good. We're going to give them another flip. We're going to try to get both sides decently browned. We also need them to set enough that they're like cake things. They're still mushy in the middle. They're mushy enough that I can press them out like that. And we don't want them to be that mushy. We want them to be less mushy than that. Also, our fat is not evenly distributed in our pan because, of course, my entire worktop is slightly sloped. So let's try... I don't think we'll need any more fat unless they really start soaking it up later. But yeah, we're gonna limit ourselves to 4 for the next one because I think I don't have enough room to do good flips. They're also still at this stage picking up some of the burnt on bits from the bacon. Some of these little black speckles are stuff that fell off of the bacon while we were frying it. Speaking of which, I'm going to taste that crispy fried up chunk of fat. Tastes like bacon fat. Tastes like fried up bacon fat. That's real tasty, but you probably shouldn't eat that. Anyways, that's pretty much what I'm going for. And then we're just going to do that to all of these. Corn, which is what these are made out of, and beans, which is what the beans are made out of, makes a complete protein in the same way that beans and rice makes a complete protein. So, Johnnycakes and beans are something that's easy to prepare. You would, in Revolutionary era, you would make the beans in a clay pot with a lid that you would just kind of stick in a low, just jam the thing into a low fire or hang it over a low fire for a long time. And then these, you just cook with the bacon fat over your fire with your pan. You could do this, you could make the things that I'm making here at a campsite on the road with very basic tools. A clay pot, a pan, and a fire. And some scrapey thing to flip with. And you'd get a nutritious meal out of it. Let's try flipping this guy again, see what he looks like. They're looking pretty good, and they're actually hardening up quite a lot too, which is good. But grains and legumes, so any bean, which includes peas and lentils, and any of the grass grains, so corn and wheat and rice, and they make a complete protein. Probably not every one of them, but all the major ones. You can do it with, I mean, that's what beans on toast is. You can do it with corn, you can do it with rice, you can do it with mung bean, you can do it with lentil. There's a reason these things are absolute dietary staples all over the world. It's because they're cheap, they store extremely well. Corn and beans are both dry storage ingredients. Lentils have a beany flavor, but it's hard to describe. They taste like lentils. They taste distinctive. Um, Gonna have a lot of energy to fight off those British bastards. Yes. Um, Lentils are distinctive. Lentils are often recommended for people who don't want to go through the trouble of making beans the long way because you do not need to soak them. You can just cook them directly. They cook much faster than the other beans. I personally want to heavily season them because I'm not a massive fan of the flavor of lentils naked. But that's fine because they're often used in Indian cooking where they're putting a ton of seasonings in them anyways. How would I prepare them? Um, I would sort of stew them, make a beanie or lentil, like a thick lentil soup or a lentil porridge, and then serve that with rice, like you would a curry. Um, that's probably how I've done it most often. I don't know. These seem pretty. They're supposed to be sturdy enough that you could pick them up and potentially use them to scoop the beans, like a tortilla. They don't squish anymore. They kind of bounce back when I squish them. So that's a good sign that they are cooked through. That guy, I think for sure is cooked through. I'm going to take him off now. And I'm going to call that one done as well. This first batch is definitely the oiliest batch because, of course, the most of the oil was in here. They've got that little bounce to them. Now, that one's still kind of soft. That one I might not have squished out flat enough. I'm going to take these other two guys off. Put him right in the center, give him a little bit more time on that side. So they're not as fast as pancakes, for sure. And I made them kind of small, which is, I think, important for being able to flip them consistently. We should do lentil. Guys, I have a suggestion box. If you want... Now, we have already had a discussion about eggs with flamingo. I could, if you would like, do a bunch of different ways to make eggs. Now that eggs aren't killing my budget anymore, we could do, these are a bunch of different ways to make eggs. I could also do something like that with lentils. I've got lentils. If you've got an ingredient, here, just a blanket statement. If you've got an ingredient that you want to know more about, ask me. Ask me and maybe suggest that we do a whole show about it. I'm pulling that one. And we are going to Johnny some more cakes. Johnny me cakely. Tell you what, this scooper is a godsend because this stuff is just sticky enough that if I was using a spoon, I'd have a hard time getting it out of the spoon. Fun things to do with different types of potatoes. That's a possibility because the different types of potatoes do different things. I'm not massively an expert on potatoes, but I can certainly do some reading. We are 2 minutes away from releasing the pressure on our beans, and then the beans will just be kind of fine to hang out until we need them. They retain heat super well because there's so much mass in there at the moment. And also, they become thicker as they rest, which makes them more pleasant. At the moment, they're almost like a soup. When I open that thing up, they're going to be almost like a soup. But the liquid, as it cools, the proteins from the beans that have gotten in there, the sugars as well probably, will start to seize up. Depression era cooking, given our trajectory. Well, this isn't Depression era cooking, but this is pretty cheap. And if you get bacon, because we use bacon in both elements of this, if you get bacon, pro tip for getting cheap bacon, look for trimmings. Look for the ends. They'll often be packaged as pieces or chunks, and it's irregular bits. Things like, it's the one I cooked here that had that really thick fat along the side. Things that are too fatty to make the neat slices, they'll just hack that stuff up and package it and sell it as is. And that's the best way to add bacon into something you're cooking that doesn't care about having slices of bacon. Oop. This stuff is enough like a dough that you can kind of push it back to. They look like fried eggs, don't they? So yeah, what I've noticed for some things, because I made Hellfire Stew after I saw Tasting History with Max Miller make Hellfire Stew, and I was like, that seems neat. I want to try that. By the way, if you've never seen that YouTube channel, check it out. It's great. When I made Hellfire Stew, I tracked down salt pork in order to make it as it would have been made. But salt pork was super common and super cheap during the Civil War compared to bacon. But now bacon is way more abundant and cheaper. So some of those Depression era recipes, some of those scarcity era recipes are using ingredients that now are weird niche things. So we can look through those and maybe we can adapt some of them to current cheap ingredients. Like corn. But yeah, Flemish, that's a very solid idea and one that I have also considered. I'm definitely, our thing is going to be pressure release. I'm also obviously always hunting for deals and budget stuff, hence the bargain bin. Everything we get comes out of the bargain bin. So I have given some serious thought to just doing money-saving, cheap, nutritious, cheap but nutritious. Oh no! I said but nutritious. Okay, the beans can be unlocked. There's no keep warm on there. But yeah, and some things are actually going in different directions. We've got a few things have gotten a lot cheaper than they used to be. A few things. I find molasses to be surprisingly affordable these days because it's being more of it is being refined to sugar, and the molasses is just kind of being treated as a waste product. What is that sound? Oh, that's the dove that sits on the roof. We're at a strange time of day when I'm not normally here, and I can hear him on the roof making his dove sounds. They're making us eat the sea bugs. Sea bugs are delicious. You all know it. We all know it. We all know sea bugs are delicious. How sturdy did the first batch come out? Ooh, actually, they a little bit washed out. They hold quite well. That's a good sign. They're a little on the greasy side. I'll just lick my fingers. This would be the kind of thing where if you had a big griddle top, you could just slap the whole thing out, do them all at once. This would be the recipe for a big griddle, like a big iron slab on top of your campfire. We're losing a few bits around the edge of these guys as we flip them. I don't think we need to cook them quite as long as I cooked the first ones. I don't think they brown really aggressively. They are soaking up the bacon fat. So the first batch is going to be much greasier than the other ones, and that might affect our browning as well. I do make my own brown sugar. I don't buy brown sugar. I haven't purchased brown sugar in I don't know how long. I buy white sugar and I buy molasses, and if something calls for brown sugar, I put them together. Because that is how current modern brown sugar is made. Because it is all being refined fully to white sugar. And then for the brown sugar, they're adding back some molasses. Old-fashioned brown sugar was simply not refined all the way, but because the refineries because white sugar is the thing that is demanded, all the sugar refineries are set up to go straight to white sugar, and then they backpedal to make brown sugar. Modern industry. But that is the reason that molasses has become cheap. Because it is largely a byproduct of that process. These are getting much nicer browning too, actually. I think there was too much fat in the pan. I think there was too much fat in the pan initially. Nibbling on the bacon. The bacon fat. Well, the number one advantage is I don't have to buy a third kind of sugar. I can buy molasses, which I can use for things that only want molasses. I can buy white sugar for things that only want white sugar. And I don't have to buy a third package of brown sugar for things that want brown sugar. That's one benefit. Second benefit, you know how brown sugar kind of hardens up over time? White sugar never does that, unless you get it wet. White sugar doesn't do that. Molasses also does not crystallize. It just stays liquid. So you don't have to open up the brown sugar and be like, oh, it's a brick, and then chisel away some brown sugar. So those are the two advantages. So I suppose if you're using a lot of brown sugar, another thing is I don't use a lot of brown sugar. But I suppose if you're using a lot of brown sugar, then you would lose efficiency by making it yourself each time. I like the look of these Johnnycakes. They smell good too. They smell like corn. Not gonna lie, they kind of just smell like corn, but I'm fine with that. They look pretty good. I like the little brown spots on them that they're developing. I'm freshening this up with a little bit of my other bacon fat. We're smoking. We're smoking. Gotta. Like the mask. Smoking. But yeah, so at some point in my cooking history, I had brown sugar, and I had molasses, and I had white sugar. And I opened up the brown sugar for a recipe, and it was a brick. And I just hated it. And then I put two and two together, looked up how do you make brown sugar, and it's what is it? It's just sugar and molasses, and the more molasses, the darker the brown sugar. That's how you make dark brown sugars. You add like 4 times more molasses to it. So then it's like, okay, I guess I'll use up the remaining brown sugar, but why would I get more since I hardly use it enough to warrant it, and clearly it goes in a brick. And I have the other ingredients on hand all the time anyways. So, yeah. That's what happened there. We can just hit stop on the old pressure pot. It's getting smoky in here again. Smoking. This makes quite a few cakes. Oops. I should also remember that I'm making 50% more cakes than I initially planned on because I ended up having to add more water to my kettle. Oh, let's see. And it's just a little bit after noon, so once these cook, we'll have one more. We'll have one more little batch of them, and that'll be the end. And I will serve myself lunch, and I will say au revoir. We should select a plate. If that white plate. I wish I had like a rustic plate. I wish I had like a rustic plate for this rustic dish. It's getting a little smoky in here again. I should open a window. Oh, it's getting quite smoky in here. I should do this. I'm going to turn on the circulator and try to head off, setting off my smoke detector. So the smoking of the bacon fat would not be a problem if we used lard. Lard has a much higher smoke point. It's the proteins in the bacon fat that are, it's the other stuff besides the fat, because it's the same fat, it's pig fat. But it's the other stuff that's in there with the pig fat that is causing the smoking. Probably a little bit of the butter as well. They are a little on the delicate side before they set up. That is probably the one big concern with them. It's kind of like when I tried to cook scrapple. Remember the scrapple? When I tried to cook the scrapple, and I flipped it too early, and it just kind of turned into hash. Did I do that on camera? I can't remember. Sometimes I cook things and I don't even remember if I showed you guys or not. Anyway, it tastes pretty good. It tastes like having just taken a nibble off of one of them. I might not have done it on stream. I might just be remembering doing it and being like, this would have been something I should have done. Because sometimes I'll cook something and at the end I'll be like, I could have just streamed that. It took the right amount of time. It was weird. I learned some stuff. I could have just fired up randomly, which I should do more often. Which I should do more often, just for random cooks. What was I saying? Oh, I just took a nibble of one of these guys. Completely plain. If you've ever had an unseasoned, an uncheesed Cheeto, a cheeseless toe, that's what these taste like. They're not as crunchy as Cheeto, but that's the flavor. Fried corn, which, if you've ever had fried corn, you know what fried corn is. I don't know where that sentence was going, so I bailed. I think the pan needs to be lightly greased because I think these are working better when they're not swimming like that first batch was. Anyway, they're still looking pretty good. And yeah, they got a good sturdiness to them. They've got a decent sturdiness to them. You could probably get away with scooping beans if you fried them a little bit harder so they were really crisped. What was that sound? Well, that was the neighbor's car. All these sounds. I don't stream at this time. There's all these weird midday sounds happening. Yeah. I'm going to call that one good. I think I'm going to call that one good too. That one was pretty solid when I flipped it. That one needs a little bit more on the other side. That one probably needs a little bit more on the main side. Oh, also, if you're not in the Discord, any of you, I pinned the message up at the top. Would a black pepper sausage gravy work with these? Yes. Any question involving would a savory sauce work with these? Yes. They're not fluffy like a biscuit. They don't have that cakiness to them because there's obviously no flour in them and no raising agent. But we're also not cooking them so that they are crisped right through to the middle. So they're going to have that soft middle, which is fine. Again, they have the cornmeal that's going into them was pre-cooked. We boiled the cornmeal with boiling water. The water we added was boiling, which means the cornmeal is cooked. It's softened. You can just eat this thing. You could just eat this. Why is my light so blown out up there? I just noticed that. I just noticed that. I only just noticed that. You could eat this with a spoon, as is. And in fact, my preferred way to serve chili is grits. This is grits. This is a very basic grits, but this is grits. My preferred way to serve chili is with grits. And in that case, the chili serves as a, ooh, that one looks quite good, as a savory sauce for the grits. So yes, I would say sausage gravy would work fine. And that's it. That's our last batch. Look, woman. Hi. Yep. I mentioned the Discord way back at the beginning, but I'm going to a gathering in the afternoon that is going to bleed into dinner. Rather than postpone stream, I just decided let's do a morning stream heading into lunch, which is what this is. And we're just about to wrap up because this is the last batch of these guys. And then we serve them. And apparently, people like, I mean, it's a holiday, so it's hard to judge if this is how every Monday morning will work. But apparently people like the morning stream, so maybe we'll throw in more mornings. That'd be a neat one to throw in, like a Wednesday morning with a target of lunch. That griddle looks familiar. Gosh, Whatever do you mean? Oop, oop, shoot. If you're not aware, and I hazard that most of you are not, this griddle that we are currently using is a Griswold cast iron griddle pan. Griswold being a fairly legendary cast iron forge. I could make breakfast. Griswold being a fairly legendary cast iron forge that is one of the cast iron product lines that you're meant to. It's highly desirable and highly collectible because they're high quality and also out of business and have been for quite some time. And this specific pan was also a gift to me from someone you may recognize. It is, in fact, this is like quite a premium pan. Unlike modern, like you probably have some cast iron and it's got that pebbly texture. This thing is like soft smooth. It's not just smooth, it's not like glass smooth, it feels almost like it's soft. It lives on a hook above, actually above where the pressure cooker is, but not in the steam blast zone. The cast iron kind of lives around the top of the thing, the stove there. It was well seasoned when I got it. And I've kept up with the seasoning, but it was well seasoned when I got it. It seems to have been used heavily. I've never found a Griswold at a thrift store myself. But you know what? It's not just that it's a collectible. It's a good quality pan. They made a good product. When I am looking at cast iron at thrift stores, which I do, I look specifically for ones that are smooth. They're sanded smooth on the inside cooking surface because it really makes a difference. You don't want them to be like glass smooth, which none of the manufacturers have ever made one that was glass smooth, so that's not something you have to worry about accidentally stumbling upon. I'm getting distracted, and this last batch is flopping onto each other awkwardly. None of the manufacturers ever made one that was glassy smooth. But I look for smooth. Smooth is a sign of the older ones that were sanded instead of just pressed out and sold. But also, it's a much more pleasant cooking surface. And I've found one or two. This little guy. This one. We've used this one before. I found this one. I don't know what maker it is. It just says 9-inch skillet on the back, which you cannot see because it's all dark. But it's got that smooth finish. And I've used that one a couple of times. It's a very nice small pan. Trez! Weeks worth of hardship and tough emotions. Oh my. Well, hi, Trez. I'm sorry to hear you've had such a hard time and you've been gone for a week. Uh, Give a shout to Cybertraz there. Well, you are in time. We had an odd early stream today. We're testing out. We're not testing out a new time slot. We're taking a chance on a new time slot because I will not be available this evening. A couple people have said, hooray for European times. A couple people have shown up late or toward the end, presumably because they weren't expecting it to be on. Which is what I was actually expecting, was people to be like showing up toward the end. I didn't realize you were here. A ton of people showed up early though, so that's good. We are on our last batch of Johnnycakes. I think in this case I overshot the other way, and I should have freshened up the fat in the pan a little bit. We're having a slight hard time frying. Well, I hope things are turning around for you, Mr. Cybertraz. Good to see you. Welcome in. I'm going to put a little bit more fat in this pan, even though this is the last one, because I don't think we're frying quite as well as we were. Traveling across to Zealand. Well, at least you're getting something good out of your hardships. Going to see Mini Traz. We're making an American Revolutionary War classic, which actually, in my research, predates America even more than just being part of the war. The recipes I was able to locate are from the 1760s. Yeah, that browning already looks better. I turned the temperature. I keep adjusting the temperature to try to control the smoking a little bit. If we were outside, or I had a proper vent hood, I would just let this thing smoke. So the recipe we're working with for the cakes is from 1767. The recipe for the Boston baked beans, which we will serve, is significantly less old. Ooh. They look really good. But yeah, these cakes are pretty much done. So I'm actually going to turn the heat off. I did not end up using the oven to keep them warm. I should have. But we're going to think about serving. And I'm not just going to pour beans over the pile, although I am going to make a pile and pour beans over it. Just not the entire pile. So we're going to think about our service. It's going to be yellow and brown. I think a white plate is the best bet, just because otherwise anything else, unless I use, your choices are white, black, and red. I think if I use brown or yellow, the food will blend in with the plate, and I don't want that. We will take you off of that burner as well so that you stop smoking a little bit faster. And yeah, we're at the point of plating. I'm inclined to just grab the same plate I used for the cakes. The old Betty Crocker cook, probably. Let's see, where did I put that? Well, I have got this one. You know, I didn't even think of looking in this book. This isn't a Betty Crocker. This is a Betty Furness with a bunch of handwritten recipes in it. And an article, a newspaper article about turkey. Does it have a table of contents? Quick breads, maybe? 305? We should crack this thing open and make something out of here. Mexican corn muffins. That's that one's probably pretty close. They don't call it that. They call it cornmeal squares with Creole sauce, but the sauce is a separate recipe, and this recipe is milk, cornmeal, salt, and cheese and mustard. You have this book. Amazing. I've never actually cooked anything out of this book. This was also a gift. It's very old. It's well loved. We should break it open at some point. Also, Mr. Design Cooks, hi, welcome in. We are indeed doing food. We are right at the point of plating. Um, we have made very, very classic style Johnnycakes. And we will be serving them with, I need to get a trivet out for this because it is going to be hot enough to potentially damage my cooktop. Oh my God. Oh my God, that smells good. Cooking them with, or serving them with, Boston baked beans. The very classic combo. The literal recipe from 1767 combo of Johnnycakes, the most basic form, and Boston baked beans. So I'm not serving them with maple syrup. The Johnnycakes are very, very basic. Cornmeal, salt, and water, and then I added some butter into the mix, but that is not traditional, just to richen them up. And then you fry them. You fry them like a pancake. They don't fry as fast as a pancake, and you have to press them out because it's the stuff. The cornmeal is the consistency of mashed potatoes, so you get these little piles of it, and you press it down with a spatula to make them flat. This stuff is 1 pound of dry beans, half a pound of bacon, a big onion, 4 tablespoons, which is a quarter cup of molasses, and a quarter cup of Worcestershire sauce. Johnnycakes have gone through a lot of evolution since this recipe. And most ones you'll encounter now have a leavening agent in them, usually have some sort of flour in them, and often are sweetened. which makes them more biscuity. These guys are skinny. These guys are also just corn. Um, yes, they'll often have egg in them. They'll often have milk in them. Um, but this combo that we've got here is the recipe I got and that we followed is from, it's not even from a cooking website. It is from the Journal of the American Revolution, a history site. And yeah, they made their Johnny cakes quite a bit bigger than mine, but they look very similar. Um, they also used a whole ham hock instead of bacon, and I used bacon because it's just easier to get a hold of. So yeah, check it out. I say I followed the recipe. This is my standard baked beans recipe, which I have now perfected over the course of making it twice, but recently. Also, the link at the top of it is our Discord. If you wanted to join in, there'll be pictures of this and all of my past and future food. I was getting out a bowl. Do we, here's the question. Do I put some cakes on the plate and then spoon the beans over the top, or do I put some cakes on the plate and then have a bowl of beans? Mod Pro, hi. We're talking about plating right now. We were talking about at the beginning, Mr. Design. May I call you Mr. Design, or should I call you Cooks? Or should I call you Mr.? We were talking at the very beginning because I had a lot of time to kill because we did a pressure cook on this, so there was a bunch of downtime phases about what might have been used, because my research on where this came from, the earliest current documented versions called Johnnycakes are from Revolutionary War era. Or even pre-Revolutionary War era. But both the beans and the corn cakes were adapted from the Native American recipes. And we were talking about what fats might have been used. The beans obviously wouldn't be navy beans because that's a modern breed, but some kind of bean. The corn is basically the same corn. Deer fat seemed like the most likely on the East Coast. But I ran across one, we did a little bit of research. I ran across one talking about bear fat. That was interesting. And obviously you wouldn't have had butter. You wouldn't have had that kind of onion either, but there are native onions, so there were definitely some seasonings to go with that. So I used bacon because that's what I have available. For both, actually. The bacon was also the fat we used to fry up the cakes. Yeah. Duck and rabbit. Oh, I forgot rabbit fat. I know about rabbit fat because there's an official U.S. Army guideline for field survival regarding cooking rabbit where they say never skin the rabbit because all the rabbit fat is in the skin, which means it's very easy to get the fat off of the rabbit if you wanted to render it out. Anyways, I think I'm gonna do a little pile. And then spoon the bean over the top. That seems like how I want to serve this. Any objections before I dive in on that? and then we'll go make sure my photo station is ready. Take our glamour shot. Find my phone. Take our glamour shot of our photo, or our food, which is the one you will see on the Discord. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to worry about there being slightly soft ones at the bottom. Give a little bit of that. I've gone for it. And I am going to adulterate it with a gentle crack of black pepper. And one last thing. Last second. Have to jump outside real fast. A quick last second decision to throw some chives on it. For exactly the reason that Rayuya said we needed a little bit of green to help the plate pop. And the chives, now that they are actually outside instead of in my front window like they've been all winter, are growing fabulously, so we can use chives pretty much at will whenever I want. I don't have any fresh rosemary. My rosemary plant died. I've got dried rosemary, but that doesn't look very good as a garnish. Don't want loose chives on the side of the plate. The awkward part of doing food content is, of course, the fussy plating. You can't see them very well, but they will show up on my glamour shot and have that nice little green spritz across the top. Let's go take our photo of this so that I can dive in and have a bite, because I'm excited to dive in, and also I haven't had anything but coffee today. Oop, no, that's the wrong button. There we go. Which is normal. I normally don't have breakfast. I just have a coffee in the morning. That's my typical. Let's get the big pot of beans out of the way. I did make a ton of beans. I will be sharing the beans with my friends at our Memorial Day get-together, which is part of the reason I decided to make beans today. Served I guess we just dive in. Let's see if I messed anything up. I did nibble on some of the edges that fell off of the cakes already, so I'm not going to bother tasting them by themselves. Mmm. Mmm. It's good. I love the texture. Um, we'll see if they get soggy. The ones underneath the middle get soggy. The one that was out exposed had a really lovely crisp to it, but it was nice, sort of soft in the middle. Okay, they do lose their crisp. Um, they do lose their crisp once they got the beans on them. I feel like the beans need a little salt. I feel like I undersalted, which is interesting. Um, I might just even add a big old pinch of salt to the pot of beans back here. They taste a little undersalted, and I want to jazz that up a little bit. Let's try another bite now that I've got a little bit of salt sprinkled on them. Between the bacon and the Worcestershire sauce, I thought there'd be enough salt in there, but yeah, they needed a little bit of salt. Interesting that they ended up undersalted. Normally I oversalt. I'm not sure how they'll behave on reheating. We will have to test them out. At the moment, I can't tell you because they're not something I'm intimately familiar with. I'll take the cakes with me. I'll take the cakes with me. The beans are good. I actually think they're slightly less good than the last time I made them. And the last time I made them, I put in half the Worcestershire sauce and put in the other half as soy sauce, which I mentioned wanting to do this time, and I think that would give us more depth of flavor, more complexity. This was never meant to be like a super gourmet meal, for one thing, because these are basic staples. But for basic staples, it's darn good. I really like the texture because the beans they're double cooked, so they're soft. You barely even have to chew them. You can just like crush them with your tongue. But the little bits of bacon have a little bit more of a chew to them. And then the cakes provide a crispy texture. Soy sauce would also give me extra salt as well. And the fact that they were undersalted means I think I would, rather than swap out some Worcestershire for some soy sauce, I would just add some soy sauce. Because they were a little undersalted and they needed a little bit, I feel like they needed a little bit more complexity. They need not just more savoriness, but they need a different savoriness, which the soy sauce would help provide. Okay. 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 So I'll stir that salt in. We'll make a note. We'll add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce to our liquid mix. How are the patriotism levels? I feel ready to run to, what was that city? One if by land. I know my American history. I could definitely pass a citizenship test. Something near Boston. Something about Boston, because these are Boston beans. I have never used mushroom soy sauce, so I cannot say if that one would be preferred. I have regular soy sauce on hand. I also have black soy sauce. Black soy sauce is much less salty and much sweeter. Does it actually have less salt in it? Um, it does. It has about half the salt in it. So I would go with regular or tamari. I would go with regular soy sauce, or I would go with tamari. Um, I probably wouldn't. I probably would skip the black soy sauce because we have a lot of sweetness as it is from the molasses. We could we could do some tweaks. You could also swap out some of the molasses for maple syrup, which I've done in the past, which would make this sweeter because maple syrup is sweeter than molasses. But then you're bleeding into not Boston style. Boston baked beans are molasses. Mmm. 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 Although, to go for more of the Native American traditional flavors, maple syrup would be more accessible because they weren't refining sugarcane. Um, and beets hadn't arrived yet. Those were still in Europe. Mm. I never see. I can't really taste the chive. They're probably noticeable if I pick them out, but I can't really taste them with all the rest that's going on in here. But they make it look nicer. I never see mushroom soy sauce, so if I spotted one, I would grab one. But I don't know about that. This is good. It's a little bit time consuming, but making a big pot of beans like that took us about 2 hours. Wow, we're looking at 3.5 hours. That took us about 2 hours ish between all my waffling around. So making a big pot of beans like that, that'll last for days or serve a whole bunch of people. Likewise, a big pile of cakes. They didn't take that long. We did them entirely in the time of the second cook on the beans. Oh, welcome to the chat room. Thank you, Twitch, for welcoming me back to my own chat. I didn't even know you kicked me out. Just the worst. So this was time consuming, but for the aforementioned budget eating, making a big vat of beans that'll last the week. That'll last the week. Or if you've got a particularly hungry family, less than a week. But it's a pound of beans, and you could see how much they expanded. It's probably going on a half gallon of finished beans. It's a lot of beans. So just setting aside one day to do the big bulk of the work, you could crank this out and you'd be very samey to eat it every day. But like I said, it's a highly nutritious, filling, complete protein. So, just the thing when we inevitably have another Revolutionary War. Did I say that out loud? I didn't mean to say that out loud. I meant to think that. It does need a little bit of salt, though. I undersalted it, which is better to undersalt than oversalt because you can't take the salt back out. But you can always add more in. So definitely prefer undersalting it. Also that, which was 5 cakes in a one big scoop of beans, that's a meal. That's a meal for sure. This is going to fill me up for lunch for sure. I think if I were to make some changes this time, I think if I were to make any changes, other than little flavor tweaks with the beans, I probably would not use bacon fat for our Johnny cakes because of the smoking. I probably would go right for the lard, which I got out just in case I needed it. I ended up not using it. But I probably would go right for the lard because it wouldn't smoke as much. And also, that's the kind of thing that would really benefit from a big griddle. If I could make a griddle, if I could do the whole cooktop as a griddle, then you could just lay them out, do them all in one big go. Because doing them in batches is what took time. Okay, I think we're done. It's after 1 o'clock. Good thing I didn't wait till 10 to start. This was fun. I'm glad people actually turned up. I was legitimately worried that when I did this, because the announcement was last night. It wasn't super late, but it was in the evening. I was legitimately worried no one would turn up because this is a weird time of day. Who knows? But yeah, I will keep that in mind for future times when I can't make it for the regular time. And we could maybe throw it on Wednesday. We could. I'm always trying to figure out what's a good times to throw in other days. We had a whole discussion about taste tests. We had a whole discussion about games. Let's get cooking. Yeah. So I'm going to eat that. That's going to be my lunch. And then we're going to have a grilled tube meats later. Happy Memorial Day to those who are celebrating or observing. I guess you don't celebrate Memorial Day, you observe it. And happy to whatever else is today to everyone else. Monday. Happy Monday. Let's raid you guys out. Soren is here. Let's raid you guys out. Shots of sriracha. I'm not planning on doing shots. I'm planning on making little nigiri style rice balls, little tiny rice balls, and putting the sriracha on the rice balls. Little like rice nuggets. Because I feel like eating the sriracha plain by itself is not a very good taste test because it's a sauce. Rayuya has got the raid messages. Rayuya has got the raid messages. I need to find somebody to raid out to. It's a weird time of day. I have no idea what to look for. None of my regular food targets are on right now. Let's check the main followers tab. Rusty Rhymes is on. They're not cooking. They're playing games right now. Juiced is killing Riggs. Rhino's playing Minecraft. Zara. Ooh, Zara's been on for a long time. Zunder's only been on for an hour. And Zunder's been missing a lot. We're gonna go raid Zunder. Brick and Nick is building a Lego Mario Kart. While that sounds fun, I want to go see Zunder. So I'm putting my foot down. and we're going to see Zunder. As you saw at the beginning of the stream, streamer has feet today. Because Zunder's on, and I can't remember the last time I saw Zunder on. Zunder's one of the people behind Firebot, who also streams, which is neat that you can just, there he is, foot down. So yeah, he's currently playing Power Wash Sim with Ocarina of Tom, who is another fun guy. So go check it out. I'm not going to commit to coming back on a particular day later this week. That's not Monday. I will commit to next Monday. But as always, I would like to throw in something else if I can. Badger me. Badger me on Discord into showing up for additional streams. Countdown's happening. I'm going to wave at you.